His refusal to denounce far-right nationalist extremism can...
Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. In today's episode, Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau go back and forth after the wacko comment yesterday. Pierre Poilievre got thrown out of the House of Commons. What you're going to see here is a very different tone. Pierre Poilievre has chosen to take a different tone and show he is a prime minister, he can control the situation, and Justin Trudeau does the exact opposite, just more garbage. It is deplorable, as you'll see, what Justin Trudeau does with his caucus, basically planned, canned questions, doubling down on their slander and garbage of Pierre Poilievre. This is essentially eroding democracy is what we're seeing here. Things are just starting to open up. They're just starting to fill the seats. It is really tense. I can show you here. It's a tense scene in the House. Something else to note, Jeremy McKenzie, the guy who started Diagolon, posted a video yesterday basically saying it was just a group he created for him and his friends. It's not a real group. It was never verified as a group, despite hate.ca getting $1 million of funding from the Trudeau Liberals to fight against it. He basically exposed Trudeau for being owned by this meme. Trudeau just keeps doubling down on it. He's trying to get people scared about the right. Oh, Diagolon. He's just trying to latch onto it, but it's pathetic. And he knows that the mainstream media won't pick it up and expose it as exactly what it is, a meme. All these dirty tricks aren't going to work. Canadians aren't stupid. So before we get into the question period, they give out statements. You guys have to check out this one.
Forest Lawn.
Liberal leadership race 2024 is well underway, and Mark Carney is the first out of the gate. He's been jet-setting across the country, preaching his gospel of 4 more years of broken, failed, and woke Liberal NDP policies that have made Canadians poorer and Canada's economy weaker. That's why common sense Conservatives moved a motion at the Finance Committee to have Mark Carney testify. When carbon tax Carney is coronated as Liberal leader, Canadians should be terrified at his wacko policies to continue to quadruple the carbon tax, continue deficit spending, and hike taxes. It's too bad the Liberal lapdog NDP shut down our motion and chose to protect carbon tax Carney, protect this corrupt Liberal NDP government, and protect their leader's pension. It's time for the NDP to step up and show some intestinal fortitude. Have Mark Carney testify at the committee, and for once, hold the Liberals accountable for their record of wacko policies.
The honourable member.
Minister legalized smoking meth in hospital rooms, shooting up heroin in parks next to children, using hard drugs on public transit. The British Columbia government has asked him to reverse this legalization for parks, hospitals, and transit. Will he? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the opioid epidemic is hitting families, communities, and individuals right across this country and has for many, many years. That's why we are continuing to use an approach grounded in compassion, in public safety and public health, and facts-based decisions. We responded to British Columbia government's asking for a pilot project. We will, yes, work with them to adjust it in ways that they see fit. It's important to make sure that BC continues to do the things that it needs to do to keep people safe in its jurisdiction.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
No clap for that.
He still refuses to answer the question on whether or not he will reverse himself. He made the decision to exempt hard drugs from the criminal law so that it became legal to smoke meth or crack in a hospital room, including around nurses who are breastfeeding their kids. This has caused chaos, and 6 British Columbians are dying every day that he delays. So will he announce that as of today, he's changed his mind and he's reversing his legalization of hard drugs in BC? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, a number of years ago, British Columbia approached us with a pilot project that they wanted to bring in to look at a different way of dealing with the ongoing public health crisis that was hitting British Columbia around the opioid epidemic. We worked with them as they developed this pilot project, and now that they are asking for modifications to that project, we are looking at those modifications, and we will work with BC as they seek to adjust their plans around public health and around dealing with this opioid epidemic.
They've called to reverse it. It's simple.
Opposition.
Speaker, there is no time to waste. The BC government asked him to reverse his legalization of crack, heroin, and other hard drugs in public places on Friday. Every day, 6 British Columbians die of overdoses under this policy, and many more die as a result of drug-induced crimes. So there is no time for bureaucratic and political considerations. Will he announce now that his experiment with legalizing hard drugs in BC is over? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, you will understand if I take it with a little skepticism when the Leader of the Opposition says this is not about politics, because he has been the one that has been pointing out vulnerable people and trying to pursue ideological aims on this ongoing public health crisis. We have consistently stepped up to work with provinces, with municipalities, with jurisdictions, indeed, including by moving forward with British Columbia as they wanted to try a pilot project that we are working with them to adjust in ways that make sense. We understand the urgency and we will act.
It is super tense in here.
Member for Belleau-Chambly.
All right, so we're going over to French now. We'll jump ahead here.
Thousands of Canadians are boycotting Loblaws this month. They're taking action because the Prime Minister refuses to take on the corporate greed, which is driving up prices for Canadians. The Prime Minister has set up a grocery task force, which has done no tasks and has no force. Today, Loblaws reported their profits are up by nearly 10%. Liberal announcements aren't going to cut it. Why is this Prime Minister letting Big Grocery rip off Canadians?
Why is Jagmeet's brother a lobbyist for Loblaws?
Mr. Speaker, like many others, we are concerned with the refusal of Loblaws and others to sign on to the Grocery Code of Conduct, which we know will protect consumers, will protect growers across this country as well. We will continue to impress upon them, using various means at our disposal, the importance of signing on to that Grocery Code of Conduct.
Save some oxygen for the rest of us, Trudeau.
The decision is on his desk to reverse the legalization of hard drugs in British Columbia. The BC government has admitted that it was wrong. They decided not to go ahead with the full 3-year pilot project that the Prime Minister brought in place by exempting hard drugs from criminal law. Will he do as the BC government has done, admit he was wrong today so we can start saving lives?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the beginning, we've been there to work on an evidence-based, science-based, compassionate public health approach to the opioid epidemic, and that included responding to BC's request for a pilot program. Now that they are asking to adjust this pilot program, we will work with them to adjust it in ways that make sense for them. But given the new, more reasonable tone of the Leader of the Opposition, I wonder if he might take this opportunity to reassure Canadians that he does not support extremist white nationalist organizations like Dagalung, nor wants their votes.
Trudeau,
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that is false. And furthermore, there are 6 people dying every day in British Columbia. There is a 380% increase in overdose deaths in that province under this Prime Minister's legalization and subsidization of hard drugs. Enough trying to score political points over the issue. Do the right thing. It is on his desk. Will he announce today that he has changed his mind and reversed legalization of hard drugs? Yes or no?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. As I said, we're working with British Columbia to adjust their parameters and their desires around the pilot project. We will always be there to work in order to keep Canadians safe. At the same time, I will point out that the Leader of the Opposition refuses to say a simple thing, that he condemns Diagolon because they are a white nationalist violent organization, that he rejects the endorsement of Alex Jones, an extremist conspiracy theorist who denied the deaths of 20 kids at Sandy Hook. These are things that concern Canadians that he should also answer for.
Trudeau's human trash.
Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, this is the Prime Minister who has to answer for the people who are dying every day due to his policies. And worse still, he's now considering decriminalizing hard drugs in Toronto. The City Hall has made a formal request for him to use powers under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act to do in Canada's biggest city what he already did in British Columbia. Today, I wrote him a letter asking him to change his mind and reverse his position and make clear that he will not legalize hard drugs on buses and in hospitals in Toronto.
Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, we see fear-mongering going on by the Leader of the Opposition right now. I will recall for people that a number of years ago, the City of Vancouver approached us with a desire to decriminalize in their city, and we said, no, we would not do that for Vancouver. We work with provinces and public health systems. That is why we moved forward with British Columbia on a pilot project they wanted. In regards to any other province, whether it be Quebec or Ontario or anywhere else, we will work with the governments in place on proposals they may or may not have to deal with the opioid epidemic. That's all.
Yeah, BC admitted it's wrong.
You still won't clearly answer the question, Mr. Speaker, which is doubly concerning because Toronto has been overtaken by crime and chaos since he brought in the catch and release policies under Bill C-75, C-5, and C-83. Violent crime is up 40%. We just heard the tragic story on Monday of a liquor store robber crashing into a family, tragically killing a grandparents and a precious child. The assailant was out on bail. Will he repeal catch and release?
Mr. Speaker, I believe if you or other parliamentarians or indeed Canadians look at the transcripts of these questions and answers, they will see that I actually did answer the questions the Leader of the Opposition posed to me in terms of how we were going to work with British Columbia and how we would work with any province.
You've never answered a question in your life.
Positions to try and help with the opioid epidemic, and we would examine those on their merits. But the Leader of the Opposition has not answered Canadians' concerns about why he will not condemn Diagolon, the far-right extremist organization, why he will not reject the endorsement of Alex Jones, noted conspiracy theorist.
Look it up, Trudeau. You're an
Leader
idiot.
of the Opposition.
Speaker, he has not answered the question whether he would expand decriminalization elsewhere. He's using vague references to jurisdictions, but it's his jurisdiction alone to grant exemptions under the Controlled Drug and Substances Act. So, will he admit that his real plan is to take the decriminalization of hard drugs that he imposed on British Columbia and do that in all the provinces and territories across the country?
No, Mr. Speaker. I think for 8 years, for almost 9 years now, Canadians have seen that our approach on the opioid epidemic is grounded in public safety, in public health, in compassion, in funding frontline workers, and doing things that work to save lives and help people. And it is not to have some sort of secret plan, as he proposes. But if he wants to talk about secret plans, he would probably do well to actually clear the air for Canadians about his seeking for support amongst members of extremist right-wing organizations like Diagolon.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, that is again false, but the government is now suddenly and only partially changing its message on decriminalization. Prime Minister's Minister of Addictions is out now saying she's waiting for more information from British Columbia on its request to recriminalize crack, heroin, meth, and other hard drugs in hospitals, transit, and parks. Mr. Speaker, there are 6 people dying every single day. What more information does he need?
Yeah.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there are dozens of people dying every day in provinces right across this country from the opioid epidemic. We could talk about the challenges faced in Alberta. We could talk about the challenges faced in Ontario. We could talk about the challenges faced right across the country. And different provinces and jurisdictions have different approaches. Some work better, some haven't worked as well.
He basically just said Canadian lives don't matter. So we're going back into French here. This is a very different tone. They are quiet. Everyone, there's no heckling. This is the quiet I've ever heard it in the House of Commons. I thought they'd be going back and forth at it in a really heated manner again. But what Pierre has chosen to do here is really smart. He's chosen to bring the temperature down, show Canadians that he is a prime minister, that he is someone who's in charge, someone who isn't fueled by childish games and fury and rage. Like, I mean, you look at Trudeau, he still keeps bringing up this Diagolon crap. It's just ridiculous. The guy who created Diagolon put out a video yesterday saying it's a joke, it's a meme. And he's basically like, I gotcha. It was just a group he created for himself and his buddies and his chat. It's ridiculous. Trudeau knows this, and he's taking advantage of it to try to pump it up as some sort of thing to scare Canadians, but it's just making Trudeau look stupider every single time he mentions it.
Canada's biggest city, gun crime is up 66%. It's 100% nationwide. I just shared the tragic story of someone out on bail slamming his car into an innocent family. 2 wonderful grandparents dead. A beautiful baby dead. He was out on bail under the Prime Minister's catch and release C-75. How many more will have to die before he repeals catch and release and brings jail, not bail, for repeat offenders?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will highlight that we worked with provinces, including many provincial conservative leaders across this country, to bring in bail reform. We'll continue to work on things that are keeping Canadians safe. At the same time, the leader opposite talked about gun crime. Well, we move forward with some of the strongest measures on gun control that this country has ever seen. A freeze on the purchase of handguns, a total ban on assault-style weapons that has been in place for 4 years. These are the kinds of things that the Conservative Party and its leader have consistently stood against, even as we move to make our communities even safer.
What about those assault-style weapons he used to kill 30-something deer on Sydney Island, Vancouver Island? 2 laws were broken: hunting from a helicopter and using an assault-style weapon in Canada.
He mentioned all these guns that he claims to have banned and promised to seize 4 years
Here we go.
and $40 million ago. How many has he seized?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Checkmate, man.
Mr. Speaker, there are thousands of different types of assault-style weapons that for the past 4 years have been rendered illegal to sell, illegal to buy, and illegal to use, including at a gun range. Mr. Speaker, we are now working on a program to allow those owners to sell them back to the government for them to be destroyed and get money so they can go buy other guns or other products if they want to that will be legal. This is about fairness, even as we move to keep Canadians safe. Unfortunately, the leader of the opposition wants to make those assault weapons legal again.
All those weapons are still legal, Mr. Speaker. You can still own them. The Prime Minister says he's going to seize them. He's going to buy them. He spent $40 million doing that. So I'm going to ask again, how many guns has he bought? Just the number.
$40 million.
The Right
What a
Honourable Prime
waste.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as the leader of the opposition knows, we are in the process of establishing that buyback program. The priority was
9 years
making sure
later.
that those guns were no longer available to buy, to sell, to bequeath, or to use, Mr. Speaker. And that has been the case for 4 years. Now, what the Leader of the Opposition is conveniently refusing to opine on is the fact that he has committed to the gun lobby across this country that he would reverse the 2020 OIC that banned those assault-style weapons. He wants to bring those assault-style weapons back, or he can contradict me right here.
Trudeau loves using archaic words to look smart.
I will contradict him because they're not banned right now. it's perfectly legal for people to possess those guns. They are easy to possess, and not one of them has been. The answer to the question is that he has not seized a single solitary one of them. He spent 40 million tax dollars that could have secured our ports and our borders, and he hasn't taken in a single solitary gun. Is that why gun crime has risen by 100% since he became Prime Minister 9 years ago?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I will note, as did everyone in this chamber, that the Leader of the Opposition did not deny that he will be reversing the ban on assault-style weapons. He doesn't even think it exists right now. Well, Mr. Speaker, it does exist right now. It is illegal to buy, sell, or use any of those weapons. When the amnesty ends next year, it will be illegal to own them as well. We're giving an opportunity for people to sell them to the government. That is what we are doing to keep people safe. That is what he will not commit to keeping.
He's just taking away the guns because he's taking away our laws and our rights.
Yesterday, our government called out the Conservative leader for his behavior, for his courting of a far-right, white nationalist extremist group. Instead of standing up to apologize and distance himself from them, he has shockingly doubled down and threw a temper tantrum. Can the Prime Minister please tell this House what impacts the far extremism and its enablers have on vulnerable communities and Canadians?
Sit down. That's a gross, stupid question.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
What we saw yesterday from that side was unbecoming of anyone who aspires to leadership. His refusal to denounce far-right nationalist extremism cannot and will not be overlooked by Canadians. Far-right extremism and its enablers pose real and dangerous threats to marginalized communities. This is not something as a country we can stand for, and on this side of the House, we never will. Unfortunately, that leader cannot say the same.
Trudeau clearly hates white people. That's what it seems like.
I'll get back to this at the end of the House, end of this question period, but I encourage all members to continue, aside perhaps from the last question, to continue in the positive vein, which I think Canadians have noticed that members have been taking today.
The Prime Minister promised in his budget that he would double home building. Here we are, 2 years later, and home building is down 8%. His housing agency says it will be down next year and the year after that. If it cost him $89 billion in programs to bring home building down, how much would he have to spend to bring it up?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our housing plan is focused on fairness for every generation. Over the coming years, will be unlocking 3.8 million new homes by cutting red tape, by rezoning, by lowering the costs of home building.
Trudeau is shook. He's absolutely shook.
The only thing it doesn't do is build homes.
Yeah.
Since he made the most recent promise in 2022 to double housing construction, the number of builds is actually down and expected to continue to drop next year and the year after that, according to his own housing agency. Yet, he says we should all be assured because once again, he's spending tens of billions of dollars on the problem that he created. So can you tell us, in what year will home building actually rise? Which year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know well that the federal government has an important role to play in ensuring housing starts across the country and ensuring the opportunities for Canadians to buy their first home. We are challenging and encouraging municipalities and provinces to also step up.
You guys don't have builders to build these houses.
That's what he's been saying for 9 years. And the result has been double the rent, double the mortgage payment, double the down payment. And just this week, a survey showed that 72% of Canadians who don't own a home believe they never will. Canada was not like this before this Prime Minister, and surely it won't be like this after he's gone. The Prime Minister a comment on what it's like to be the only Prime Minister in history to deprive an entire generation of home ownership.
The Right Honourable Prime
Pierre,
Minister.
man.
Mr. Speaker, the government that was in place before I became Prime Minister had a housing minister who is now the leader of the opposition, in a government that explicitly said that the federal government had no role to play and no responsibility towards building affordable housing across this country. So for 10 years, there was very little, there was almost no federal involvement in building homes across this country. We turned that around starting in 2017, and we will continue to invest, to create opportunities, to create fairness for millennials and Gen Z so that they can buy.
Trudeau's breaking. He's slipping.
Well, he did turn it around, Mr. Speaker. 9 years is obviously too long for him because he's starting to attribute to the previous government words he said himself. Yeah. He was the one who said the federal government is not responsible for home housing construction or affordability. That is after he doubled the cost. When I was housing minister, we built 89,000 apartments at an average rent of $973. Since then, the rent has doubled, the mortgage payment has doubled, the needed down payment has doubled. So with all this failure, why is he doubling down?
Yes, I pointed out that we cannot build homes alone, that we need partners in the provinces and municipalities. But I never denied that the federal government needs to continue to act on housing. That's why we've done that since 2017. That's why we're continuing to do it now.
He literally said it's not a federal responsibility. Something I want to note here is for the next exchange, it's in French, but I showed you guys the first one where the Liberal said, oh, hey, Prime Minister, can you tell us about that terrible thing Pierre Poilievre did yesterday? And then he's like, oh, yeah, well, he's a terrible guy. Like that whole crap. It's just disgusting. And they're doing it again here in French. And you'll see here, Fergus steps up and starts to question it because I'm sure he got hundreds, if not thousands of emails this morning from Canadians who were pissed off with the situation. Just check this out.
Since 2015, our government has been committed to promoting shared Canadian values, diversity, respect, and equality among all Canadians. We all learned last week that the leader of the opposition visited an encampment. I'm just going to interrupt the honourable member. I hope she will have a question that relates to the government administration.
Yeah, gross.
She has 15 seconds left, but I hope she will get to the heart of the matter.
Not just slander as usual.
Can the Prime Minister tell this House how the government will protect Canadians from extremist groups and what responsibility all political leaders have? Thank you.
Yeah, by voting out Liberals, that's how we'll deal with this.
All governments are responsible for protecting the well-being of all Canadians, including Canadians in minority situations.
Yeah, okay, so this is just more Trudeau nonsense garbage, but it's just gross that they had some meeting and they said, hey, can you guys ask me? Trudeau's like, ask me some questions about the extremism and Poilievre, and then I'll answer them, and I'll just ham it up for the camera. Like, it's garbage. This is garbage. We see it's garbage. You don't see the Conservatives doing this stuff. Gross. This government is unbelievable. We talk about extremists. We have an extremist group in Canada. It's called the Liberal Party of Canada. That's the extremist group.
The Prime Minister is not worth the cost of debt interest. He doubled our national debt, adding more debt than all previous prime ministers combined. And now we learn in his new budget bill that he's going to seek another $300 billion of debt, money that he will borrow out of the economy. That's equal to over 10% of our GDP, which will surely put upward pressure on interest rates. How much will all this government binge borrowing add to the mortgage payment of the average family?
Yeah, he's devastating our country.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, allow me once again to set the facts straight. Canada has one of the strongest fiscal positions of any country in the world. Certainly the lowest deficit in the G7, the best debt to GDP ratio in the G7, and it's continuing to decrease. And we are the third largest economy in the world with a AAA credit rating, the top credit rating by the agencies that look at fiscal sustainability of governments. All that is on the backdrop of further investments. We're making generational investments to support Canadians. Contrast with the ideology of the Conservatives, which is to leave Canadians to fend for themselves, cuts and austerity.
That debt to GDP ratio bullcrap, is nonsense. So basically, the Canada Pension Plan is a part of those numbers they're using, where all the other countries do not have a Canada Pension Plan-like program to prop up their numbers. Thus, if you take that away, we're like dead last. Misuse of numbers and the deception that Liberals constantly spew out in the House of Commons.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we actually have the highest mortgage debt of any country in the G7, and by far higher as a share of our economy than the Americans had during the mortgage meltdown. Now interest rates are higher and families risk losing their homes. Government deficits push inflation and interest rates higher. That makes the problem worse. So once again, how much will $300 billion of yet more debt add in mortgage payments for the average Canadian family? How much?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is mixing different factors that are facing Canadians. Mortgages are high for Canadian families, and therefore the Canadian government is choosing to invest in measures that are going to support Canadian families. I talked to a family from Burlington who actually saw their mortgage mortgage payments go up because of the rise in global interest rates, while at the same time as their child care fees were cut by larger amounts because of investments this government made.
Mr. Speaker, inflation and higher interest rates, the cost Canadians pay for the spending that the Prime Minister told them was free. It's not free. Nothing is free. Every dollar he spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians directly through taxes or indirectly through inflation and interest rates. Now he wants to do another $300 billion of binge borrowing. Will he put aside that radical scheme and instead accept my common sense plan to fix the budget with a dollar-for-dollar law so we can bring down interest rates and inflation for Canadians?
Here. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been there to invest for Canadians responsibly. We still have one of the top AAA-rated economies in the world. Our fiscal plan is sustainable and responsible. However, the Conservative leader still wants to make cuts to programs, cuts to our military, cuts to the initiatives that are helping Canadians across the country. The things that we are doing are helping Canadians grow for the future in a responsible way, and that's why we're seeing inflation come down and interest rates will be coming down, I am sure, in the coming month.
Yeah, we're not believing anything, and interest rates are going back up.
The Honourable Member from Calgary Skyview.
Mr. Speaker, the government has a responsibility to tackle misinformation and disinformation in Canada. Okay. Furthermore, the government has a responsibility to tackle hate and discrimination across Canada. And it's shameful that the Leader of the Opposition posed for photos with extremists who push hateful rhetoric.
Another one of these? Are you kidding me?
Tell the House how the government is taking these matters seriously.
This is garbage, dude. That's absolute trash.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, Canadians have every right to be worried about the opposition leader's refusal, including multiple times during this question period, refusal to condemn violent extremism. But they shouldn't be surprised. Over his 19 years in politics, he showed Canadians time and time again that he will do or say anything to get elected. That includes pandering to extremists one day and pretending to stand with the very vulnerable communities those extremist groups target the next. Not only is this reckless, this is a failure of leadership. Canadians deserve better. Canadians deserves leaders that will stand up for them every step of the way.
Trudeau is a disgrace to human history. What you're about to see here is Fergus once again addressing the situation here. He, I don't know if he's got some sort of, he wants to feel like he's credible, but this garbage where they keep asking Trudeau, oh, why do they, white extremists, blah, 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 all this crap. He's addressing this again.
Colleagues, I indicated that I would just come back to an issue that came up in terms of a question earlier today that didn't deal with the administration or the business of the administration of government. I'd like to let I intervened on another question which I thought was going in that direction. There seems to have been a correction being made. I want to make it clear to colleagues that the chair and the chair occupants have been discussing this issue, and I think it's very important that all questions that are going to be asked in this House are asked that respect our regulations in our procedures, to making sure that questions are relevant to the business of the administration of government. I refer members to a decision that I made, that the chair made November 20th of last year, and of course there have been previous decisions made by previous speakers along the same lines.
What you saw there was two different sides. Pierre Poilievre wanted to dial it down, wanted to show he could destroy Trudeau with a very calm demeanor. He didn't need to amp it up. And the whole rest of that session there, Justin Trudeau already had 3 people queued up to bring up these stupid questions. Prime Minister, tell us why Poilievre is this white nationalist, but like all this garbage. It is garbage. There's absolutely zero connection to any of that stuff. Pierre Poilievre pulling off the side of a highway to talk to a couple of carbon tax protesters is not some white nationalist, white racist, what are those words, Trudeau, that keeps Freudian slipping, right wing, and then he calls it white. You can't make this stuff up, man. Things are going downhill fast. I think Pierre Poilievre brought down the tone because he knows that there might be 1 million Canadians to show up and start ripping the bricks off the building. And he's going to bring it back here. He knows he has to have this pushed through calmly until next year and get Trudeau out of power. Otherwise, Canadians will take action and change who's in government, whether they like it or not. A very much prime ministerial tone from Pierre Poilievre, and very much the tone of a bonehead loser from, once again, Justin Trudeau. Liar, just the worst person ever. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of this session. Is the tone switch is stark, to say the least. You can see there at the end, the Conservatives started to get a little bit more lively, and Pierre was starting to loosen up a little bit. Share your thoughts down below. Be sure to subscribe and hit the thumbs up. I greatly appreciate all of you watching here. We're going to keep fighting for freedom. We're going to keep getting after it until we get it. I'll see you guys in the next one.